Hi, this video is specifically going to be a voiceover. You will not see my face at all, but I just want to give you a second piece that's available to you at all times for when you're completing the next assignment on our Bowie Elementary field-based block calendar, which is called a spelling inventory that includes a word study lesson. So this information that I'm going to share with you now, we will also talk about it in class, but I know how we talk about a lot of things in class and there are a lot of details so that you have some backup. This is that backup for you whenever you start your assignment. So the spelling inventory has a couple of different parts. The first to note is that there are different spelling words for specific grade levels. Right now on my screen, you see the primary spelling inventory directions. These are specifically for grades K through 2 in our case. So if you're going to be in a K through 2 class at Bowie, and you have a case study student who you're going to be working with, this is the spelling inventory that you would choose. Just to flip over to the elementary level feature guide, this particular one is for grades 3 through 5. It's called the ESI, where the other is the PSI. I'm going to start with the PSI just to show you an example of what this looks like. If indeed we don't have a student that you can use and work with from Bowie directly, then we're going to do this with partners in our class. So if you're wanting to be a K through 2 teacher, then I would say choose this one. And if you want to be a 3 through 5 teacher, then you would choose the other one. We'll get more specific as we get a little bit closer to when we need to do this and take care of this assignment. But for directions purposes and what the expectations are, you note now that there are 2 different spelling lists for students depending on what grade they're in. I know this says 3rd grade here, but I definitely want to divide it out as K through 2. So don't pay attention to this little piece there. This spelling inventory with directions tells you exactly what to do to administer the spelling inventory. And we're literally just giving a spelling test to a student. The rest of it comes in the post spelling test when you have to analyze the information that you've been given. So I'm just going to scroll down to the list of words that you would use for the primary spelling inventory. It starts here on the bottom of the page with number 1, the bottom of the first page with number 1. The first word that you want to ask your student to spell is fan. And you can use the sentence here as an example. So you would say, I want you to spell the word fan. And I'm going to give you that word in a sentence. I could use a fan on a hot day. Fan. And then give the student time to write that word down. You would continue on. There's 2 through 26 very specific words, and they're words that are created in this list to help us with the analyzing once we've got the information. And that part will look more purposeful whenever we actually get to the spelling inventory feature guide. So the first step that you are going to do is administer the test. And then we come back together and analyze that spelling test on a feature guide, which looks like this. I'm going to scroll all the way down here and let me flip it. This is where we do our analyzing, the analysis of the student's spelling abilities. You'll recognize from your homework and lots of notes that we've taken about spelling stages is that we know emergent is pretty early spelling. There's still some learning going on there with what letters sound like and what they look like. We move across this chart here in difficulty. So you can think of it as grade level increase or ability to spell gets better and better as we go right across this chart. So beyond emergent is the letter name alphabetic stage. The within word pattern stage follows that one. And then syllables and affixes follows the within word pattern. All of this is important to note in order to create your word study lesson. So let's say your student completed their spelling test, but you've identified that they're at the letter name alphabetic stage. We can identify whether they're at the early part of that, the middle part of that, or the late part of that, and use your context clues to understand what those mean. Early would mean they're still maybe a little emergent, not quite fully knowledgeable about letter name alphabetic parts of words. Middle would be they're pretty good, and late would mean they're almost at within word pattern. Once we have this data, we figure it all out, and we put all of the numbers here at the bottom and over here. And with this information, then we're able to fill out the top part and identify the spelling stage. And that's the critical point. Once we know the spelling stage, then we can start building lesson plans that help the student from where they are rather than going backwards or going too far ahead. Because we're going to only be dealing with one student, this is very specific to that one student, and you wouldn't create a lesson plan that you would do with this student that you might also do with another student unless you knew that that other student was at the same spelling stage. Just to go back to the ESI and show you this one, the directions are very similar here. And the spelling words for the elementary level students, I should say upper elementary 3 through 5, start with the word bed. And there's also a sentence there for you to use if indeed the student needs a word in a sentence. The feature guide looks similarly, but includes the upper elementary level words. But you notice the spelling stages are here. All the data points are added up and totaled around here at the bottom. And then we mark the spelling stage and all the totals at the top to identify where that student needs to begin instruction. So again, the first thing we do is pick a case study student, whether that's somebody in your class at Bowie, and hopefully that's going to be the case, or your partner that you're partnered with in class. And then you have to administer the test. What we're going to do is give you time to administer the test, and then the next time we meet, so a week later, we take that spelling test and analyze it. And here's what the officially analyzed piece will look like. This is an example that I use in class. The student's name was Alexa, grade 4. So this is from the ESI, not the PSI. And Alexa spelled bed with all of the features that we're looking for, B, D, and E. So consonants are here, initial and final, and then that short vowel. So she receives all 3 feature points, and she spelled the word correctly. So we give a 1 for correct and 0 for incorrect. Similarly with ship, she got the final consonant correct, the short vowel correct, and the digraph. And again, we'll mark the feature points that were correct and that she spelled it correctly. When she received the short vowel feature point and the digraphs feature point over here, 2 feature points and got it correct. If there isn't anything in the box, like right here, initial or final consonants, then we're not looking at that piece for this particular word. We're only looking for the digraph and the short vowel. So that's where we're sort of moving out of the emergent stage and into more of the letter name alphabetic stage. Float, if you notice, we're only looking at the final consonant, the initial blend at the beginning, and then the long vowel pair in the middle. She got all three of those correct, and we mark it as a 1 for spelling it correctly. I'm going to move on down to where there is an incorrect spelling, which is the word bright. BR. She wrote IHT instead of IGH. So the spelling is incorrect. That is marked as a 0. She did get the BR part right, but the common long vowels was not correct. So we just kind of note the pattern of behavior or what the student did, but I put a little dash here to note that it's not correct, where you notice that the correct ones have a check mark by it. So that might be something you want to think about. Because she got the BR right, but not the second feature, we're going to give her 1 feature point, and the other one was incorrect, so we don't count that one. Same or similar with shopping, the next one on the list. She got the vowel, she got the digraph, but she didn't double the P in shopping. So there's an ending there that we might need to instruct. There are 3 feature points in shopping, but she got 2 of them. So we would mark 2 correct, but spelled the word incorrectly, give her a 0 there. So I'm going to move on to what do we do once we've check marked and verified the spelling, listed feature points, and words spelled correctly. I'm going to go down to the bottom of the screen here. Notice that we do the totals at the very bottom. All of the consonants are added up into this one column here. She got all of them correct, and there are 7 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, there are 7 out of 7, so she got all 7 of them correct. Short vowels, 1 column here. She got all of them correct. Same thing with digraphs. For blends, same thing, 7 out of 7. Common long vowels, she missed that 1, that IGH. So we mark it as 4 out of 5. She got all the other vowels correct, 7 out of 7. And here in inflected endings, there were a couple missed. The doubling the P on shopping and the IES in carries. So she got 3 out of 5 of those. I'll describe this circle and the line in just a moment. Continuing on, syllable juncture, she got all of them correct. Unaccented final syllables, 3 out of 5. And I note here with the dash and the correct, or what the student wrote, the dash and what the student wrote. So 3 out of 5, and so on. So you see things started getting a little difficult as we got into the more difficult spelling patterns. If you remember from our seminar, the spelling syllables and affixes kind of become something that's taught in more like 3rd, 4th grade. So if this student is in 4th grade, this is about right on and things that she would be learning in class. So what we do is with this information filled in, we take it from the emergent column all the way over to the right, and we look at where the student missed 2 or more in that feature column. So in this case, the first time the student missed 2 or more is in inflected endings. So I recognize that. I put a circle around that, indicating that this is where there is the first example of 2 or more missed. I draw a line up to the top of this chart to indicate she needs some help in inflected endings. And I'm going to consider that early inflected endings. So we're working on affixes when we're talking about inflected endings. So early syllables and affixes, early stage, and inflected endings are what we're looking for. This is where I know that I would start instruction with this student. Now, yes, she did well on syllable structures, and about here she hits Miss 2 again. So I'm going to be okay with starting kind of going back and teaching some inflected endings to further strengthen syllable structures and further help her with the unaccented final syllables. So you would access FCRR or your Tompkins textbook or the Words Their Way textbook to begin creating your lesson plan for the next step, which in this case for Alexa, you would plan a lesson plan that would work and help with inflected endings. What we're going to do is create a word sort, and you would get that mostly from FCRR or the Words Their Way textbook. And we'll talk about that in class so that you have some idea of what a word sort looks like and how you might put something like this together for a lesson plan. The hope is that if you have a case study student at Bowie, you would actually be able to complete that word study lesson with that student. But if you guys are going to have to do it with a partner in class, we may or may not spend time working on the words, actually doing the word study lesson. You would have to write it, but we may not have an opportunity to actually practice it. So I'm crossing my fingers that we'll be partnered with our Bowie cohorts as soon as possible. Hopefully this is helpful, and when you're working on your analysis and trying to figure out where your student lands for instructional purposes, this will help you get to that next stage. Thanks a lot.